What if I told you that during a Michael Jackson concert in 1988, a British fan threw her underwear at the King of Pop on stage, and his reaction was so unexpectedly hilarious and charming that it became the most talked about moment in Wembley Stadium history? This is the story of how Michael Jackson turned an awkward fan moment into the most endearing display of British humor and class that had audiences around the world falling in love with him all over again. Before we dive into this absolutely incredible story about the most awkward fan interaction that turned into pure comedy gold, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Give this video a thumbs up if you're ready for some serious laughter, and let me know in the comments about the most embarrassing thing you've ever done in front of someone famous. Don't forget to share this with anyone who needs a good laugh and wants to see Michael Jackson's incredible sense of humor in action. July 15th, 1988, Wembley Stadium, London. Michael Jackson was in the middle of his Bad World Tour, performing for 72,000 screaming fans in what would become one of the most memorable concerts in British music history. What started as a typical evening of electrifying performances turned into a masterclass in grace, humor, and the kind of spontaneous charm that made Michael Jackson beloved around the world. But nobody could have predicted what was about to happen during The Way You Make Me Feel. The concert had been absolutely perfect for nearly 2 hours. Michael had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand with flawless renditions of Billie Jean, Beat It, and Smooth Criminal. His voice was crystal clear, his dance moves were sharper than ever, and the energy in Wembley Stadium was absolutely electric. The British fans had waited months for this moment, and Michael was giving them everything they had dreamed of and more. Michael was halfway through The Way You Make Me Feel, one of his most romantic and sensual songs, when something unexpected came flying onto the stage from the VIP section near the front. It landed right at his feet with a soft thud that somehow managed to be audible even over the thunderous music and screaming crowd. When Michael looked down mid-verse, he saw something that made him stop singing completely and stare in absolute bewilderment. It was a pair of women's purple lace panties, delicately embroidered with small silver hearts, thrown by 22-year-old Sophie Thompson, a university student from Manchester who had been saving money for 8 months to afford front-row tickets. Sophie later explained that she had been caught up in the romantic atmosphere of the song, and in a moment of complete madness, decided to show her appreciation in the most dramatic way she could think of. What she didn't expect was Michael Jackson's reaction, which would be talked about for decades to come. Michael stopped singing completely and stood staring at the purple lace panties for what felt like an eternity, but was actually about 15 seconds. The band, confused but professional, continued playing the instrumental, not sure whether to stop or keep going. 72,000 people held their breath, waiting to see how the King of Pop would handle this unprecedented situation. The silence from Michael's microphone was deafening, and you could practically hear the collective intake of breath from the massive crowd. Then Michael Jackson did something that nobody in Wembley Stadium could have predicted. He burst into laughter. Not just a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle, but a genuine, uncontrollable belly laugh that was so infectious it immediately began spreading through the entire stadium like wildfire. The laughter was perfectly captured by his wireless microphone, and within seconds, 72,000 people were laughing along with him, even though many of them couldn't see what was happening on stage. But Michael wasn't finished with his reaction. What he did next showed why he wasn't just a great performer, but a genuinely witty and thoughtful human being who could turn any situation into entertainment gold. Michael walked over to where the panties had landed, bent down very dramatically, and picked them up using just his thumb and forefinger, holding them as far away from himself as possible while making an exaggerated face of mock shock and horror that had the crowd roaring with laughter. Then, speaking directly into his microphone with perfect comedic timing that would have made any British comedian jealous, Michael addressed the situation with a charm that was uniquely his own. "Well, well, well," he said, his voice carrying that distinctive Michael Jackson inflection that fans adored. "This is certainly a first for me at Wembley. In all my years of performing, no one has ever given me such a personal gift." The crowd erupted in laughter and cheers, but Michael was just getting started. He held up the purple panties for the entire stadium to see. twirling them around his finger like a flag of surrender. "Ma'am, wherever you are out there," he continued, scanning the VIP section with theatrical intensity, "I have to ask, what exactly am I supposed to do with these? Should I wear them? Should I frame them? Should I auction them off for charity?" The physical comedy was absolutely perfect. Michael began pantomiming different scenarios, pretending to put the panties on his head like a hat, holding them up to the light as if examining their quality, even pretending to use them as a handkerchief to wipe his brow. Each gesture was more ridiculous than the last, and the crowd was absolutely loving every second of it. People were doubled over with laughter, and many were crying from laughing so hard. But then Michael did something that transformed the moment from pure comedy to something genuinely heartwarming. He looked out into the VIP section and said, with complete sincerity, "You know what? The lady who threw these must be incredibly brave. It takes real courage to express yourself so boldly in front of 72,000 people. So instead of being embarrassed, let's give this fearless woman a proper British round of applause." Michael began clapping enthusiastically, and immediately 72,000 people joined him in thunderous applause for Sophie, who was simultaneously mortified and thrilled that her impulsive act had created such a positive moment. The applause went on for nearly a full minute, and Sophie later said it was the most incredible feeling of her entire life. Being celebrated by Michael Jackson and 72,000 strangers for something she had been terrified would be seen as inappropriate. But Michael had even more surprises in store. He walked to the edge of the stage closest to the VIP section, still holding the purple panties, and addressed Sophie directly, even though he couldn't pick her out from the crowd. "Miss, I want you to know that this is definitely the most memorable and creative gift I've ever received at Wembley. And I promise you, I will treasure this moment forever. You've just become part of Michael Jackson concert history." The crowd went absolutely wild, but Michael raised his hand for quiet because he had one more surprise. "However," he continued with the timing of a seasoned comedian, "I do have one small request for future concerts. Next time, maybe you could throw a nice scarf, or perhaps some flowers? Because I'm starting to run out of places to put underwear, and my security team is getting very concerned about my collection habits." The laughter was so loud and sustained that it could probably be heard all the way to Buckingham Palace. But Michael wasn't done yet. He carefully folded the purple panties, still using just 2 fingers as if they were made of the finest silk, and handed them to his security chief, Frank DeLeo, who was standing in the wings trying not to laugh himself. Later it was revealed that Michael had whispered specific instructions to Frank. "Find the fan who threw the panties and return them to her with a signed photograph and a handwritten note." The note, which Sophie still treasures today, read, "To the bravest fan at Wembley, thank you for the most unexpected laugh of my career. Keep being fearless. Love, MJ." The entire incident had taken about 7 minutes, but it created a moment of connection between Michael and his British audience that went far beyond the typical performer-fan relationship. He had taken something potentially awkward and embarrassing and transformed it into a shared moment of joy, laughter, and celebration that everyone in Wembley Stadium would remember for the rest of their lives. What made the moment truly special wasn't just Michael's humor, but his incredible kindness and emotional intelligence. Instead of making Sophie feel ashamed or embarrassed about her impulsive act, he had celebrated her boldness and turned what could have been a mortifying experience into a magical memory that she would treasure forever. The concert footage of Michael's reaction became one of the most requested clips on British television. Before the internet existed, the Panties incident was copied onto thousands of VHS tapes and passed around among fans, becoming one of the first truly viral moments in entertainment history. British comedy shows referenced it for years, and it became part of Michael Jackson folklore. Sophie Thompson, now a successful businesswoman and mother of 3 in Manchester, still has the purple panties that Michael returned to her, along with his signed photo and handwritten note. She became something of a local celebrity, and her story became part of British pop culture history. "I was mortified when I threw them," Sophie recalled in a 2018 interview, But Michael Jackson made me feel like I had done something wonderful instead of something stupid. He turned what could have been the most embarrassing moment of my life into the most magical one. The incident also revealed something beautiful about Michael's character that British fans particularly appreciated. His ability to find joy and humor in unexpected situations, and his instinct to make others feel good about themselves, even in awkward moments. British entertainment journalists who covered the concert said that Michael's handling of the Panties incident was more impressive than any of his choreographed performances because it showed his genuine personality, quick wit, and natural comedic timing. Anyone can rehearse dance moves and memorize lyrics, wrote The Guardian's music correspondent Sarah Williams. But what Michael did with that awkward moment showed true star quality, the ability to turn any situation into entertainment while making everyone involved feel celebrated rather than ridiculed. The story became so legendary that it influenced how other performers handled similar incidents at their concerts. But none of them ever managed to handle such situations with the same combination of humor, grace, and genuine warmth that Michael had displayed that magical night at Wembley. British fans, known for their appreciation of wit and self-deprecating humor, absolutely adored Michael's response. And it cemented his status as not just a great performer, but someone who truly understood and appreciated British culture. Michael himself would often reference the Wembley Panties incident in later interviews, always with a smile and always speaking fondly of Sophie's courage. That young lady at Wembley taught me that sometimes the best moments in a show are the ones you never plan, Michael said in a 1994 BBC interview. She reminded me that connecting with people is about being real, finding joy in unexpected places, and never taking yourself too seriously. The incident became legendary proof that Michael Jackson's greatest performances weren't always his most polished ones. Sometimes they were the spontaneous moments when he was just being himself, sharing genuine laughter, showing incredible kindness, and creating connections with the people who loved him. The Purple Panties moment at Wembley demonstrated that Michael's true genius wasn't just in his music and dance, but in his ability to make every person in a crowd of 72,000 feel like they were part of something special and unforgettable. What happened after the show was equally remarkable and showed just how deeply the moment had affected everyone involved. As Michael left the stage that night, he was still chuckling about the incident, but his mind was already working on how to make the experience even more special for Sophie. He instructed his entire team to help locate the brave fan who had created such a magical moment. The search for Sophie became an adventure in itself. Michael's security team, led by Frank DeLeo, had to work with Wembley Stadium staff to review ticket records and identify the VIP section where the panties had originated. Meanwhile, Michael himself was in his dressing room, personally writing the note that would accompany the returned underwear. He spent nearly 30 minutes crafting the perfect message, wanting to strike the right balance between gratitude, humor, and encouragement. "I want her to know that what she did wasn't just brave, it was beautiful," Michael told Frank as he sealed the note. "She gave 72,000 people a moment of pure joy. That's not embarrassing, that's magical. I want her to feel proud of that moment for the rest of her life." The next morning, Sophie Thompson woke up in her small Manchester flat to find her phone ringing nonstop. Word had spread through the fan community about the previous night's incident, and Sophie had become an overnight celebrity among Michael Jackson fans across Britain. Her friends were calling, her university classmates were stopping her on campus, and even her professors had heard about the girl who threw her knickers at Michael Jackson. Initially, Sophie was mortified. In the cold light of day, without the intoxicating atmosphere of the concert, she was convinced she had made a terrible mistake. She spent the entire day hiding in her flat, too embarrassed to face the world. That's when the knock came at her door. A well-dressed man in a suit stood outside, holding an official-looking envelope with the Michael Jackson Tour logo embossed in gold. "Miss Sophie Thompson?" he asked with a kind smile. "I have a delivery from Mr. Jackson himself." Sophie's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside were her purple panties, now carefully cleaned and folded, along with a signed photograph of Michael from the previous night's performance. But it was the handwritten note that made her burst into tears. Happy tears this time. The note was even more personal than she had expected. Michael had written about how her spontaneous act had reminded him why he loved performing, how genuine moments of connection with fans were worth more than any amount of technical perfection. He thanked her for her courage and told her that whenever he felt discouraged about his career, he would remember the laughter they had shared at Wembley. But Michael's kindness didn't stop there. The delivery man handed Sophie a second envelope containing tickets to Michael's final London show at Wembley the following week, along with backstage passes. Mr. Jackson would very much like to meet the young lady who brought such joy to his performance, the man explained. The following week, Sophie found herself standing backstage at Wembley, still hardly believing what was happening. When Michael appeared, he immediately recognized her from the crowd description his security team had provided. He walked straight over to her with that famous smile and said, "So you're my purple panties lady? I've been looking forward to meeting you properly." The conversation that followed was everything Sophie could have hoped for and more. Michael was genuinely interested in her life, her studies, her dreams. He told her stories about other funny fan encounters from his tours, and he made her promise to never lose the spontaneous spirit that had created their shared moment. "You know what the best part of that night was?" Michael asked as their backstage meeting was coming to an end. "It wasn't just that you made me laugh, though you certainly did that. It was watching 72,000 people come together in pure joy. For those few minutes, everyone in that stadium was connected by laughter and happiness. That's what music is supposed to do, bring people together. You reminded me of that." Sophie treasured that conversation for years to come, but what she treasured even more was how Michael had transformed what could have been her most embarrassing moment into her most cherished memory. Years later, when she became a mother, she would tell her children about the night she threw her underwear at Michael Jackson and how he taught her that courage and authenticity were always worth celebrating. The ripple effects of that Wembley moment continued long after the concert ended. Other performers began to change how they handled unexpected fan interactions, inspired by Michael's gracious and humorous approach. Comedy clubs across Britain started featuring routines about the incident, always with affection and respect for both Michael and Sophie. The story became part of British pop culture folklore, referenced in movies, TV shows, and even academic studies about fan culture and celebrity interaction. British fans still talk about that night at Wembley as one of the greatest concert moments in history, not because of the spectacular production or flawless vocals, but because of 7 minutes when Michael Jackson showed his true character: funny, kind, spontaneous, and utterly charming. It was a perfect example of why he was beloved not just as an entertainer, but as a human being who could find magic in the most unexpected moments and transform that magic into lasting memories for everyone involved. If this hilarious story about Michael's perfect reaction to an awkward fan moment made you smile, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more amazing Michael Jackson stories. Give this video a massive thumbs up if you love seeing how true class and humor can turn any situation into something beautiful. Share this with anyone who needs a good laugh and wants to see why Michael Jackson was beloved for more than just his music. And let me know in the comments about the funniest or most embarrassing fan moment you've ever witnessed. Michael's reaction to flying panties at Wembley proves that the best performers aren't just great entertainers. They're great human beings who can find joy and kindness in any situation, no matter how unexpected.